starting by showing a family on their way to school, including a mother named Svetiana, a daughter named Lyra, a son named Igor, and Lyra's stepfather named Boris. It should be noted that Lyra and Igor are not siblings. Lyra is an introvert, but despite this, she has a good friend named Misha. Apart from that, Lyra has an excessive fear of things related to fire, or can also be called pyrophobia. This can be seen when Lyra was taking part in a running race. When Lyra was about to touch the finish line, Misha lit fireworks, and suddenly Lyra stopped as if trauma from a tragic past. Lyra's pyrophobia was very severe. Even during Igor's birthday celebration, Lyra was very scared when she saw the candles burning. Meanwhile, far away in space, Lyra's biological father, Arabov, is always monitoring him via CCTV spread throughout the city. And as additional information, the orbital system that can communicate with Arabov is called Mira. Commander Antonov then informed him that there was movement of the asteroid on another trajectory. This was known by Mr. Fonim. As head of the control center, Antonov then gave advice to immediately carry out an evacuation of residents in the area where the meteor would fall. As time went by, news emerged that a giant asteroid would pass by Earth. Most people who heard this news flocked to capture this rare moment. The astronauts felt relieved after seeing the asteroid pass by the Earth. However, there was something else that surprised them. It turned out that behind this giant asteroid there were many other asteroids that were thought to be about to hit the Earth. Arabov tried to contact Lyra, but Lyra did not respond to Arabov's calls. The next day, Lyra saw a message from Arabov. She immediately looked outside, and yes, asteroids started falling to Earth. Lyra tried to get out of the apartment to save herself from the rubble of the building, but this was not easy because the people in the apartment were panicking and jostling each other. After making it out, Lyra met Misha. They ran together avoiding the ruins of the building. Misha said, whatever happened they had to stay together, but they had to be separated by the ruins of a building. Due to panic, Lyra was hit by a car and was taken by the driver to a safer place. This panic really made everyone lose control, until the chaos got worse, and they couldn't continue their journey. Lyra ran again, and entered a doll shop. Bad things happened to Arabov. Several asteroids apparently hit the orbital station, causing quite serious damage, and all the crew members were not saved. Arabov then asked Mira to immediately track Lyra's whereabouts. The bad impact of this order was that Mira would lose a lot of battery power. When Lyra woke up, she received a message from her father via a doll. Not long after, officers managed to find Lyra and immediately carried out an evacuation. Arabov then connected communication with Svetiana, who was now at the evacuation site. Lyra asked about Igor's condition, but it turned out that Igor was not at the evacuation site, and was most likely still in the school building. Lyra decides to go into the school building to look for Igor. Arabov tries to stop Lyra, because according to the data Mira gave, the school building will soon collapse. Lyra doesn't care about this. She will still enter the school building to look for Igor. Meanwhile, power from Mira's orbit was draining very quickly because Arabov took too long to communicate. It was estimated that it would only last 2 hours, and in the remaining time, Arabov was required to immediately evacuate himself before it was too late, but he chose to go out to look for spare batteries. Returning to Lyra, she has now managed to find Igor, and fights to get out before the school building is destroyed. Meanwhile, Arabov has now returned, and immediately directs Lyra to avoid the ruins, but everything doesn't go as expected. Arabov loses communication with Lyra. But fortunately, Lyra and Igor managed to get out in time before the school building collapsed completely. They went into a shop to rest. There Lyra told a dark story from the past, where at that time Lyra was trapped in a broken elevator. Arabov tried his best to help Lyra, but in vain, and from that incident until now Lyra experienced severe trauma. After that, they continued walking towards the refugee camp, but thick fog had enveloped the city so their visibility was limited. From up there Arabov gave directions via traffic lights in the city. They followed these instructions, until they were able to reach the evacuation location.
Ира, включи лошадку.
However, there the doctors were busy treating the victims, while Igor had to be treated immediately, and luckily Misha was in the helicopter at that time, and immediately went down to make room for Igor. Arabov planned to immediately save himself using an emergency capsule, but he first saw a signal from an oil transport ship that was experiencing a fire, and if it was not immediately resolved there would be a very large explosion. Arabov immediately contacted Lira via Misha's cell phone. He begged Lira to immediately move away from the area of the burning oil tanker, but Lira didn't want to run away from the problem, and could only hide. She threw away Misha's cell phone, so Arabov could no longer communicate with Lira.
То есть ты хочешь пойти?
Accompanied by Misha, Lira headed to the ship. When they got there, they immediately looked for the center of the fire inside the ship. Not long after, they found the area where the fire was centered, but the trauma of the fire now enveloped Lira again. Not remaining silent, Arabov contacted Lira again via the doll that Misha had repaired. He gave instructions on how to put out the fire, but when Misha was about to check the room, suddenly there was an explosion and Misha fell unconscious. For the first and last time after Lira grew up, Arabov could feel the touch of his beloved daughter through Misha's robot hand. They really missed each other.
Чем помочь, пап?
Помочь мне, помочь тебе. Должен был их трогать, вообще не должен был. Я просто... Ему у него больно костюм.
With no other choice, Lira must overcome her fear of fire in order to save the townspeople. Step by step Lira started walking to put out the fire, while Arabov could only wait for Orbit's destruction, but for the rest Arabov felt calm because Lira had succeeded in putting out the fire. After that, they were immediately evacuated, and were able to meet their families. The film ends. A valuable lesson from this film is how we face problems bravely, in the sense that we don't run or hide from problems, like Lira did. Even though Arabov advised her to stay away, Lira instead fell into trouble, and as a result, she managed to solve the problem, and succeeded overcome all the fears and trauma he feels.